Woo-hoo-hoo-hoo! This one is a tasty one. Okay, this is sponsored by Chatty. She came up with another idiom, an Italian idiom, but I asked her, do a Neapolitan one, Napoletano idiom, and she came up with this one. Never heard it before, so hopefully I pronounce it correctly, because I don't really speak Napoletano. I speak Italian, but I know and understand a little bit of that accent, that dialect. Okay. Chi non tene coraggio, non si cocca che femmene belle. Yes, I think that's right. I think that's right. It's going to come right here. But what it means is, he who does not have courage does not go to bed sleeping with beautiful women. He who doesn't have courage doesn't go to bed with beautiful women. Chi non tene coraggio, non si cocca che femmene belle. Okay, which leads me perfectly into the story of how I met my wife. So we met at a church youth camp when we were really young. She was 14, I was 17. I know it's ridiculous now. 3 years doesn't seem like a big deal, but as kids, that's close to being, well, dangerous. And so we met at this camp, and I had this like really strong spiritual prompting that she was going to be my wife. And but she lived in St. George, and I lived in Provo, Springville area, which is, there's a 3.5 hour difference between those towns. And it's a 260-mile drive from basically the top of Utah all the way to the bottom of Utah. And I was working at my parents' restaurant at the time. It was the summer, so I just met her at the beginning of the summer, and I was working as a server at my parents' restaurant throughout the summer. We didn't text very much, but, we kind of kept in contact that first summer. And I remember texting her one day, and I was at my parents' restaurant. I was up in the trolley. It was dead. There was no one there. And I was kind of just sitting at a table, kind of cleaning it off. But then I saw that I got a text from Lexi. And she was telling me that, like, it was something around the lines of, when are we going to meet up? When are you possibly coming back up to Provo? Because I had never, up to that point, ever been to St. George before. And she said, oh, actually, we're thinking about coming up the first week of August. We go to this ballroom dance camp at BYU every single year. And right when she said that, I was like, I ran down this trolley. I ran down to my mom's office, and I said, Mom, hey, you got to help me out. And she was like, what is going on? I was like, just look this up for me. So she looked up the ballroom dance camp and found that it was the first week of August. There was this ballroom dance camp. It was Latin ballroom dance camp. And there were still like registrations for it. So this thing was like $1,000. And back then, like, it's still a lot of money, right? But for a kid, that was a fortune. I was like, Mom, buy the ticket. I'm going to this dance camp. She was like, what? I was like, I'll pay you back later. Just buy it for me. So she buys me this ticket, right? And I go back to texting Lexi, and I was like, wait a second. Wait, are you going to that, like, from August 5th to the 9th, that ballroom camp at BYU? And she was like, yeah, that's the one I'm going to. And I was like, are you kidding me? That's the same one I'm going to. So I ended up meeting her like 2 months later. Right, we end up going to this ballroom dance camp together. But what you have to do is they've broken it down into 3 different classes. At least this was how it happened back when they held this, like, this little weekend, this week ballroom dance camp. There was a beginning, middle, and like an advanced course, right? And of course, Lexi has been doing this for years, and she's in the advanced class, right? But the thing is that if you'd never gone to the camp before, you could do tryouts, and tryouts would help you to fall into one of the 3 classes, right? So I have never done ballroom, and I didn't do much ballroom after this. But I was like, look, if this is what it's gonna take, then I'm just gonna have to just wing this and do such a good job with so much confidence, right? Then I end up getting put in the advanced class, and then Lexi and I can dance, and I have my opportunity to swoon her. And sure enough, the first day of tryout, I go up, and I don't do any Latin ballroom dance. I just do a ton of, like, just dancing, just full of rhythm stuff, right? I was like, I'm good to learn. And I was like, I could pick up quick steps and stuff. And I was like, but I need to go into the advanced class. And with enough confidence, those people believed me. They believed that I knew how to do ballroom. And so they put me in the advanced class. And for a week, I got to spend time with Lexi. And it was really like the start of, we had planted the seeds. And now this thing needed to be watered. It needed sun. And this was the opportunity of the beginning of going to bed with a beautiful woman 5 years later or something, whatever. 5 years later, right? But if I did, che non tene coraggio, mamma mia, come si dice l'ultima parte della frase? It's something like, non si cocca, che femmene belle. It's like, it's Napolitano. If you don't have courage, you don't go to bed with beautiful women. Such a funny phrase. But I will have to admit, I've done some pretty audacious stuff, especially when it came to winning Lexi over. Like, I just went overboard with so many different things. Like, I am going to just bend the universe in making sure I marry this girl. And that was the start of my pathological pursuit in winning Lexi's hand. And it is because of bravery that I one day made it to bed with that beautiful woman. Okay, so the random Neapolitan idiom today is chi non tene coraggio non si cocca femmene belle. Ooh.